In the UK, institute is a protected word for organizations carrying out research at the highest level. Calling oneself an institute and failing to seek approval is a criminal offense. The University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I was teaching until 2010, lauded as a research institution, takes great interest in Detroit, its neighboring city. The Detroit Center is an example of one of the university's initiatives. In the president's words of the university, she says, "Providing a home for our many Detroit projects, the Detroit Center makes us far more visible and accessible and enables us to be a part of the city's revitalization." Detroit Connections is a course in which art undergraduates work with elementary students at the Marcus Garvey Academy. So there are a range of Detroit-based initiatives that involve faculty, students, staff, and the administration. Now, last spring, a graduate seminar I taught titled, "Why Does Everyone in Ann Arbor Want to Make Work in Detroit?" It addressed the issues, the taboos, the self-doubt that arise as grad students sought to engage communities and take on projects in Detroit, for some a city that might become their future home. Now, my presentation today is a culmination of research and inquiry compiled by Michael Borowski, Erica Buss, Charlie Michaels, and Brad Wickland. Urban decay and despair, okay? Words like these have become associated with what was once it was called the most cosmopolitan city of the Midwest. Today, tourists and media moguls visit Detroit to document particular visual representations called ruins porn. These images come from a 2009 Time magazine article titled "The Tragedy of Detroit." The ruins attributed to Detroit, however, echo of the same hollows on the university's own campus. The grounds are scrubbed clean of the vitality of its former days of student activism. In 1968, protests against the Vietnam War were led by Bill Ayers, a UM alum. These pictures are of the Black Action Movement that fought to increase black student enrollment in 1970. In 2009, the enrollment of students of color at the University of Michigan was at an all-time low of 9.1%. Tai Chi classes now take place at the campus's Cube, and the greatest congregation of students are at the Wolverine football games. From the university, it's nearly impossible to make the 45-minute trip to Detroit without a car. The first barrier against building reciprocal engagements is with Detroit citizens is the lack of public transportation. Erica Buss, a grad student, articulates that our group's affiliation with the university was a hindrance and a help. She says, "Most of us had very limited experience in Detroit. We were aware that we were not only outsiders, but represented a group of predominantly white, university-affiliated artists from an affluent college town, who were approaching a predominantly black city, notorious for socioeconomic disparity and its hardship. Our university affiliation, however, provided us with school vans for field trips and funding to invite Detroit-based insiders who talked to us about the city's history, politics, and culture. Our seminar format also enabled us to present topics that pertain to the city and fill in each other's gaps of knowledge. For instance, the Detroit incinerator, located downtown, is the nation's largest trash incinerator. It's a source of income, a public health danger, and the primary obstacle against curbside recycling. While the nation's unemployment rate holds at 9.6%, the rate in Detroit is at least at 30%. Consequently, the population, once at 2 million in 1950, is now at 790,000. In Detroit Lives, a new documentary, Toby Barlow says, "Success at one point gave everybody in Detroit the one thing they wanted, which was the ability to leave Detroit." Brad Wickland reminds us that graphs and media depictions are a one-sided portrait. Grace Lee Boggs personifies a beacon of hope, At the Boggs Center, intergenerational dialogues take place about visionary leadership and re-spiriting the city from the ground up. Grace Lee celebrated her 95th birthday at this year's U.S. Social Forum. The landscape of the city's streets reflects race and class divisions that are accompanied by vast amounts of abandoned homes and land. Michael Borowski provides examples of how artists in Detroit are reimagining community activism through the use of vacant land. The Powerhouse Project by Mitch Cope and Gina Reichert entailed purchasing abandoned homes at extraordinarily low prices and refurbishing them for solar power with scrap materials. Others have followed suit and are creating sustainable models. Tyree Gutton and Scott Hocking are Detroit-based artists that reconstitute the landscape's visuality. The Heidelberg Project is an ongoing polka-dotted found object, a mirage, amidst the predominance of vacant lots and structures. Now, Charlie Michaels, like most of my students, had a desire to take his practice outside of his studio. Most neighborhoods in Detroit are considered food deserts with little or no access to healthy groceries. Charlie, in response, volunteered at Earthworks, a soup kitchen and urban farm that spans 6 empty lots. Among a group of friars and AmeriCorps volunteers, he offered whatever skills he had: weeding, digging, driving, painting. Farming on empty city lots was inspiring and poetic to Charlie. However, he did not consider this work to be his art practice. He did not approach Earthworks with research goals, a grant, or preformed concepts. He says neighborhoods like this in Detroit are frustrated with artists and academics coming in, making them the subject of their work without a genuine willingness to help them work towards the fight for social justice. Charlie's experience highlights the felt division between working for social change and an artistic practice. In the face of social urgency, the expansive and discursive sites of the studio and the classroom might feel excessive. How could we pivot our institutional framing of art so that Charlie's experience at Earthworks could indeed be his practice? Detroit citizens and my students both reveal perseverance in the face of what Grace Lee Boggs would call the despair of deindustrialization. Within Detroit's vacancies, we discover who we are and who we might be. Thank you very much.